Do you guys mind if I read it out loud? No. Okay. Um, Health officials claim that because the foods and beverages mentioned or consumed on many television programs are extremely low in nutritional value, watching television has a bad influence on the dietary habits of television viewers. Can anyone point out what the conclusion is?
Watching television has a bad influence on the dietary habits of television viewers.
Great. Okay, so what is the author saying here? Ray, can you summarize this for us?
Yeah, pretty much that food is that hold on, how can I put it? Basically food has an impact on television viewers, basically. It has a bad influence, basically.
Yeah, so they're saying that on TV shows or TV programs, the foods and beverages that they have on there are bad. They're bad for you. They don't have a good nutritional value. And so because people are watching television, it has a bad influence on their own dietary habits. Is that valid?
No,
Why not?
because it could be the fact. It could. I mean, it could be the possibility that something else is. I mean, something else pretty much has an influence on their dietary habits. It doesn't have to be TV. It could be. Trying to think of an example. I'm stuck, honestly.
Maybe like the food is cheaper, unhealthy food is cheaper, so they would rather buy that.
Maybe. But let's also think about it this way. Just because I see it on TV, does that mean that I'm going to do it? No. So what do I need to be true for this to be true?
That watching TV influences your diet.
Yeah, that my diet is actually going to reflect that what I watch on TV. Because if I don't, then I don't know that it's going to be influencing my dietary habits. My diet isn't going to be like badly influenced unless what I'm watching on TV is actually what I'm following. Does that make sense to people? And
Mm-hmm.
feel free to say no. I like to think of necessary assumptions almost like a flaw question because when you're reading it, you see this gap in the argument. The author isn't telling you something that you need to be true for the conclusion to be true. They're doing something wrong. So when you're reading it, read it critically and think, what is the author not telling me? Or what is the author doing wrong? Because if you read it that way, you start looking for that gap in the argument. You start looking to find what the author hasn't told you. And that leads you towards the right answer. If not, it is the right answer. And it's a skill to build up and it takes practice. But start reading for necessary assumption questions or just stimulus in general. Just read them critically and think about what the author is doing wrong. Because when you're thinking about that, you start understanding what actually is going on, or you start picking up on the things that they're not saying, which really helps in assumption questions because assumptions, again, are things that they're not saying. Make sense so far? Okay, so let's go through the answer choices and then we will start talking about how to check for the right answer. So the claim by health officials depends on the presupposition. So now we know it's a necessary assumption because we have the word depends, which clues me in onto the fact that I need this. Like my argument relies on this to be true. And the word presupposition, which is just another word for assumption. Good so far? Okay. So A, eating and drinking habits of people on television programs are designed to mirror the eating and drinking habits of television viewers. Does that need to be true? Angelica, I see you shaking your head. Why not?
Well, I'm thinking that this is the opposite. We need it that we reflect what we watch, not that the TV reflects what we eat.
Right, because if the TV is reflecting what we eat, is the TV influencing us?
No.
No, we're influencing TV. So now we don't need that to be true. If that were true, it would literally like disprove my conclusion. So I'm not depending on that for my argument at all. Make sense or no?
Yeah.
So I don't like A anymore. I'm going to cross that off. And then B, Seeing some foods and beverages being consumed on or hearing them mentioned on television programs increases the likelihood that viewers will consume similar kinds of foods and beverages. What do you guys think about that? Victoria, I see you nodding. What's up with that?
Yeah, I agree because it relates. It's like the assumption that's needed to show that people who are watching TV are being influenced by these bad foods advertised. So yeah, I think B does that.
I really like this answer choice, especially because it's so mild. We have the words increases the likelihood. So they're not telling us it for sure is doing something, but it's saying like, hey, it's more likely, which I really like for a necessary assumption because we want a mild answer choice. So I really like B. And then Ray, you had mentioned the negation stuff earlier, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the ways you can check a necessary assumption question is to negate an answer choice and see if it destroys your argument. Because if it does, then that's the right answer. If it destroys your argument when you negate it, you need it to be true. Without it, your argument falls apart. So, Shanice, can you negate B for us?
Not seeing some foods and beverages being consumed on or hearing them mentioned on television programs will will not increase the likelihood that viewers will consume similar kinds of foods and beverages.
Mm-hmm. So, seeing foods and beverages being consumed on or hearing them mentioned on television programs doesn't increase the likelihood that viewers will consume similar foods or beverages. When we say that, what does that do to our argument?
Also negates it. It
Destroys it.
Yeah, why?
Because we're saying it's not going to increase the likelihood. So then the point that the watching television has a bad influence is completely invalid because we're showing it doesn't increase it.
So when we say that B doesn't happen, the conclusion doesn't end up happening. So now we need this. We need B to be true for the conclusion to be true. So that's our right answer. Does that make sense? Or does anyone have any questions?
I have a quick question. I realized when you were negating B, you skipped over some. Would some also be negated, or would we just like skip that over and just say doesn't increase?
Oh, I literally just skipped over a word. I don't think you need to negate some. Like it's not gonna seeing some foods and beverages being consumed on television programs doesn't increase the likelihood. It's the action that makes more of an impact. So the action is what I want to negate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that makes sense.
Could you also throw in, like at the beginning, it is false that seeing some foods?
It is false that seeing some foods and beverages being consumed on or hearing them mentioned on television programs increases the likelihood that viewers will consume similar kinds of foods and beverages. It does the same thing that I did.
Okay.
Because you're putting the negation in front of it. I'm just negating the direct action. But in the end, it means the same thing. Like you're saying that this entire statement is false, which is the same thing.
Okay. Yeah, I just know sometimes
some people learn to do it is false. I don't recommend it like to be your go-to because I think I would rather you just put the negation right in the middle of the answer choice. But if you're struggling to see where to negate it, you can do what Angelica said, that it is false that, to help you get going on the right page. But when you add it as false, sometimes then you have a double negation in it rather than just changing the original one. Like it is false that no people have, like when you have like the two negation, like it is false that there are no brown cows. So that would be, by saying it's false, that would say there are brown cows. So instead of saying there are not brown cows, I would rather say there are brown cows.
Well, I just meant like you just, instead of negating it, you just put it as false that, because sometimes I mess up with my negation. So I just put it as false that, and I can delete it.
Right. I if that works for you, go for it. I would tell people to recommend trying to change it in the sentence, but if you aren't understanding it, then put it at the beginning.
Okay.
You're not wrong by doing that by any means. All right, so let's Go ahead. Okay, how about you go ahead and do one more, Karshna? Do this one, and then we'll break it into groups.
Cool. Oh, this is a good question.